Thank you, Tero. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk today about smart grids and smart cities and the suitability of TETRA for that. So I have an expert panel here. Matthias needs no introduction. I've also got Tapio Sauvonen, who's the Director of Business Development for Casidian. He's looking at new business opportunities, including smart grid. And he's got a good background in the PMR business for roughly the last 12 years, and he's been with Casidian for 6 years. You might have seen in your program that Mirko Marsi from Albertis Telecom was due to join the panel. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend. So I'm very grateful to Johan Hulsima for agreeing to attend at short notice. Johan is the General Technical Manager at Expert Systems Solutions, and they're a producer of telecontrol modules, and you can see them on the Sapura stand. Johan's worked in MPT and TETRA for many years, and he tells me he's installed 3 MPT systems in South Africa and also 2 TETRA systems as well. So hopefully we've got a good balance here of a customer and some suppliers. So I think, first of all, I'd just like to say a little bit about what do we mean by smart. I mean, I think smart can mean many things to many people, and we had a discussion this morning about what did we really think smart meant. So I'm going to give you my my definition, if you like, and my panelists are very free to disagree with me, but I think it's really to do with keeping the balance between generation and consumption in a decentralized environment. More and more we have wind farms, solar power, local generation, and these all have to be connected to the distribution network, and it has to continue to work and be in balance. I think smart city, we're thinking here similar sort of communications issues, but we're thinking about managing a city, making it more efficient, or managing the urban environment. So I think, first of all, what I'd like to start with, the first topic on our in our session here, is looking at the suitability of TETRA networks to securely communicate for smart city and smart grid applications. And we've heard what Vattenfall are doing. So again, I'd like to open this up to the panel really and ask you, well, do you think TETRA is suitable? And maybe you can each say a few words. I guess, Matthias, maybe you just give a quick summary of what you said there, if you like.
Yes, what a quick summary.
Or maybe I should answer for you and say I think what you're saying is it's quite suitable for, in terms of Vattenfall, you're quite happy with the TETRA performance. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
From a technical point of view?
We have to distinguish between the critical network operator functions and the market functions. And the TETRA system we operate is an entrance to the smart grid, but it covers the critical network operator functions. So the network operator is responsible to hold the balance between generation and consumption, and he must be always real time and always must be always online. We are not allowed to go off. Yeah. And everything else is a market. So this is the difference: smart market and smart grid. Smart grid is the responsibility of the network operator. Smart grid is the responsible of the market, providing energy to the network and taking energy from the network. This is market, and both are needed. But, for my opinion, these are 2 different things.
Thank you. Tapio, would you?
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. But, if we are looking or thinking the objectives of the smart grid, so that well, you were already discussing about that to have more reliable energy supply, then to enable distributed clean energy to, say, for example, windmills and solar panels there, and also to empower consumers there, so that's really to get a better balance between the production and consumer there. So that when we are really looking at these objectives of the smart grid, so that I think that it's very clear to see so that well, more intelligence is needed in the electricity networks, and this also means so that more communication is needed there. So which really does mean that in the future energy and electricity networks, so that they are more and more dependent on the communication network there. And then, of course, so that the requirements there are reliability, high availability, then security, of course, so that not to be vulnerable networks and so on. So really all this really meaning that that these requirements are the very same characteristics so that TETRA actually is able to provide. And really from that point of view, so that I would say so that really TETRA is an ideal solution for the smart grids, to say.
Thank you. Johan, you?
Yes, I've actually got maybe a bit of a case study to give you what has happened with one of our customers. We're dealing in South Africa with an oil and gas company called Sasol. Very interesting, they actually produce oil out of coal. A very big operation. I think the size of the plant is about 25 square kilometers. So what happens in the case of an accident? It could happen, a pipe burst or an explosion. And it happened quite a number of years ago where there was an explosion in the plant. And during the explosion, both cellular networks, which were providing into the plant, could not handle the traffic. Because during the plant operation, there's about 20,000 people in this plant area. And all want to communicate, to let the family know that they're all okay. So imagine if you had a telemetry device working on a GSM backbone network, it would fail. And during those instances, you need this critical communication to get back to your control room. If there's a pipe burst, you need to know which valves you have to close. What is your pressure readings? What are the gas levels? So typically, TETRA in this particular case would be impossible. You need this mission critical in critical, let's say, applications. So in any plant operation, industrial operation, if you have to choose between GSM and TETRA, obviously TETRA is the obvious choice.
And in terms of the speed of TETRA and the capacity of TETRA, what do people think
I can
about
maybe
that?
just answer while I'm on the topic, and it is with TETRA networks, you can actually, because we call it like private networks, you are in control of the networks. The moment you're going into a public network, you do not have as an operator, well, the operator's got control over it, but very often in the industry, they do not have control over the network. So in any TETRA networks, it doesn't matter what type of manufacturer you're utilizing, you can, allocate bandwidth for voice and data application and design the network that it can handle also for emergencies, that it can handle the data volume as well as the speech volume.
And really also that if we are thinking the typical telemetry and SCADA applications, so that the amount of data so that need to be transferred, so that they are quite small usually, so that you can think so that collecting some measurement data, some sensor data, and then sending the command so that, well, for example, switch on and off, and so on. So really so that already with the TETRA 1, so that I would say so that many of the smart grid applications and SCADA applications are really very applicable for TETRA. Then of course when looking in the future there, so that having the capacity roadmap there for the TETRA, so that having the TETs there and also having the LT in the future as well, so that really I think that is more important here, so that really have this capacity roadmap in place.
And I guess in terms of, one of the important things for a utility is power backup. That if the power, obviously when the power goes down, you want to fix it, and these things have to continue to operate in that time frame. Is that fair to say?
Yes, the power backup is one very critical topic. In Germany, we need at least 10 hours independent operation for the whole area, and up to 72 hours independent operation for central network functions like the connection to the highest voltage level and others. And no public network could fulfill these requirements. Why? No one else needs this. And we have 30 base stations in Berlin, and the public networks have about 1,000. Between 800 up to 1,200 stations. Should they equip all their base stations with battery backups for a few radios for us? I think not.
Okay, well I think that probably leads us in quite nicely then to the next question, which is really looking at the business case for a multi-service network. So this is looking at the idea now that, let's say there's a public safety network existing, and is there a business case there for the network operator, I guess, to bring in utility users onto that network? And I guess perhaps conversely, from a utility point of view, do you see a business case on going on the back of an existing public safety network?
Well, so that many of Cascadian customers, so that TETRA operators, so that already doing that, so that the same network, so that which is for the public safety actors, there is also shared with many other customers there. For example, the utilities and also the electricity companies. So that I would say so that this is well business as usual already today, and really so that the experiences from that are very, very good. And really because TETRA is designed for that kind of usage as well, so that having to be able to define the different organizations and having the priorities there, and all that technical means there, so that really to manage the different users and user segments there.
I think I can add to that well. In Qatar, for instance, where QTEL is the network operator, where the industrial city of Ras Laffan is operated by the network by having many companies utilizing the service as a shared services. So obviously from a business case, if you've got a smaller plant, you may not afford to put up an entire TETRA network. Where you've got the smaller industries and all combining the infrastructure from one network operator, yes, from a public operator, it definitely makes sense. It depends on the size of your industry. Combining resources, and obviously in TETRA it's very good to combine the resources. It's got a very good platform, and QTEL is a very good example for that.
And do we see as an operator, am I going to have to invest a lot, or if I have a public safety network, or is it a pretty good fit then from where it is today? Do you think?
Well, I think
Nothing
from it's always, if you're looking from a private and maybe from a public perspective, where a private network, the drive is to give guarantee services. Very often from a public network, it's more revenue driven. So it's just depending from which angle you're looking into it. It's very important if you're looking from a public operator that they provide enough redundancy in the network, because you could have an outage in a network. It can happen to any network. Like explained with an explosion, that could affect part of your network. So redundancy also inherent in your TETRA network is extremely important. So yes, from a private operator, they make provision for it by having backup switches, backup high sites, ring networks. It's always very important that also a public operator provides those facilities. And from an economic perspective, yes, it does cost more money, but from an infrastructure point of view, but that revenue can be built into the customers.
And maybe, Matthias, I've asked you from a utility point of view, is that attractive to you to be able to use let's say, an existing public safety network?
From the technical point of view, it may be attractive, but our experience is that the official, the government is very slow, and we have to be faster. So this is conflict. We have to realize smart grid in a very short period, and the public safety network takes a long time, because you know this very well. So the other point is the public safety operations don't allow any foreign user in their network. So it's a theoretically discussion for us.
That's the German position.
Yes, it's a German. It's a German position. It's in other countries it may be different. I know in Sweden, Vattenfall also operates in Sweden. There, the countrywide TETRA network is too expensive for the police, so they are happy if they get the power supplier in the network. In Germany, it's totally different. It depends on the situation, and we can do other ways. In our network, we also have the water supplier and we have the gas supplier, and some city authorities in our network, which are not allowed to go in the security network. So it's also an
yeah, that really varies from country to country. So that as we were discussing, so that in many countries, so that the TETRA operators, so that are really operating the public safety network, so that they are also willing to share that with other players. They are typically critical infrastructure customers and so on. And for example, in Sweden and Finland, so that really they are very willing to share their network and are very welcome to other users as well.
And I guess the other question which is on everyone's mind this conference, I think, is frequencies and spectrum for such schemes as this. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that the discussion so that was there in the previous panel about the spectrum, so that the idea that was introduced there, so that really in the future, so that to share these networks, so that between public safety organization, between critical infrastructure users and so on, so that I think this is a very, very good idea, and we definitely should support that.
And maybe then looking slightly differently at the sort of the end user equipment. I mean, we saw some nice substation, which is obviously quite big. I'm thinking in terms of maybe for lower voltages or other, perhaps sort of smart city type applications where there's a large volume of devices, and we're looking, they probably looking for an off-the-shelf solution, something that combines a radio with maybe some intelligence and some interface or I/O. Maybe, Johan, you might have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, we've, during our design of our telemetry unit, we've been thinking and we listen to what is the demand from the client, but of course the clients will dictate what they need. So we've been spending a lot of time in bringing sort of an off-the-shelf product onto the market with maintainability to be very easy to maintain, can have different modules inside of it and expandability. So at the end of the day, it's very important. In our country, very often we have got a situation where sometimes a non-technical person have to maintain the equipment. We've got a lack of engineers, maintain high-level systems. So from our design point of view, we've really made it very effective and very easy to operate. And also from a bandwidth point of view, to restrict the bandwidth, just to make sure that the network operators are very happy, with the flow of data coming through.
Thank you. And then I had another question here, which was to do with interesting picking up on your point about SDS and mapping to telecontrol protocol and the fact that you had to do a proprietary solution. Do you think there's an interest in some standardization there from different utilities?
Yes, also for us and for the whole electrical industry, it would be useful to have a accepted method, standard, for mapping a standard telecontrol protocol into the SDS channel. This is attractive, absolutely. We are forced to make a European-wide bids, and so this must be based on standards. Proprietary solutions are always very difficult, so it would be very helpful to have a standard. So that's what we do 101 in SDS. That will help the whole sector.
And I think I'm not sure where the chairman is. I think if our timer is right, we have about 30 seconds left. So I was going to ask about TEDS and LTE and what does that do for that. So maybe you might have a few seconds each just to have any thoughts on that. Does that bring huge benefits, TEDS and LTE?
Well, I think if you're looking at from a perspective, we come from an old MPT analog scenario where bandwidth was virtually not available. Going into the TETRA area and having this huge bandwidth available, we still go back to, we only send small package of data. So even going into the LTE, from a telemetry perspective, it's all small bursts of data. So TETRA is perfect, even if you're going to the LTE, you've got more bandwidth available. But TETRA at the moment has enough bandwidth, to carry the telecontrol for the current users.
Interesting.
I strongly agree. So
Yeah.
that's really for the applications of today. So that in the smart grid, so that really TETRA is very applicable. But really, when looking in the future, so that when there will be more applications, more demand for the smart grid and more intelligence in the electricity network, so that then of course quite likely, so that the requirements for the data bandwidth they are increasing, and therefore so that I think so that really it's very important so that the capacity roadmap is there in place, so that really that's of course and also LT in the future as well.
Thank you.
For us, TETRA is the enabler for the telecontrol applications, the medium voltage level. It can't do this in any other way. I have no idea. And so we are very happy. This enables us. We have dramatically improved our restoration time after outages. We have dramatically